morning, everyone. We are closing out April, and we will call the Committee on Appointments to order at 8 a.m. We have just a few items on our agenda this morning. We will begin with our first resolution confirming Mayor LeGrand's appointment of Max Gibbs to the Urban Forestry Committee.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Comment on this appointment, colleagues? Oh, yes, Ms. Bosker.
I'll just add that this is the position that is reserved for a member representing the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The current person filling that role resigned, and so Mr. Gibbs is a member of Parks and Recreation who is representing that body on urban forestry.
Thank you so much for that background. Any further comments, colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our second resolution confirming Mayor LeGrand's reappointment of Commissioner Isasi to the Civil Service Board.
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. Comments, colleagues? Yes,
I
Commissioner.
just want to say
Belcher.
thank you. I think this is a great board, and your experience has clearly been a demonstrable thing that we needed on there, and I know you have a lot of expertise to give.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Okay, seeing no further comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Brings us to our third resolution recognizing Commissioner Kilgore's appointment of Sarah Larson to the Urban Agriculture Committee.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Comment on this appointment, colleagues?
Just that it's nice to see the Urban Agriculture Committee getting filled.
Yes, I agree. There's some folks rolling off, so hopefully we will continue to keep that board filled, especially as they have a very important role in our climate action adaptation plan. So I'm excited to see more folks roll on. Any further comments, colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Now, our fourth resolution recognizing Commissioner Isasi's appointment of Stacy Stout to the Urban Agriculture Committee.
I'll move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Comments on this, colleagues? Yes, Commissioner Isasi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many people know Ms. Stout as she worked here at the city for a number of years in the Office of Equity and Engagement, I should say, so there's no appearance of any conflict, even though she's not going to get any money for this. She is a good friend that I've known since college, and with her role at Blandford Nature Center, now leading that organization, I think will serve as another good member to this body. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Isasi. I concur. I am so happy to have Blandford a part of that work. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And lastly, Ms. Bosker, if you could please guide us through a discussion on our current board and commission vacancy list and let us know what that landscape looks like.
Sure, I'll start by saying that there are a couple of resignations. The one I mentioned from urban forestry. There's an urban ag and stormwater, and then a land bank resignation on the agenda for later. And so those are on my list to bump to the top of the list and gather applications. The other is the Civil Service Board. There are a couple terms that are ending, and we'll work on considering reappointment or filling those, and then just sort of moving through and continuing to share applications and fill up the spots, which I think we're plugging along.
Thank you, Ms. Bosker. Commissioner Belcher.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So regarding this stormwater board, is that at one point I had met with a gal who had been on there for a long term. Is that still the same position that is open, or is this in addition to that?
It would be that one. That person was not reappointed at the end of the year, and they agreed, as you mentioned, to continue to serve until you made your decision.
Okay, that's what I suspected or thought, and so I do have some thoughts on how to move forward on that one, so I will pursue that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Isasi.
Ms. Bosker, can you share the names of everybody who's resigned as of who will be on the later agenda today?
Yep, Hannah.
Because I think somebody was on two boards, right? So I'm trying to
Correct.
get, okay.
Hannah Miko resigned from urban forestry. Carlos Calderon resigned from Urban Agriculture and Stormwater. And then Tammy Vandenberg resigning from Land Bank, Grand Rapids Land Bank Authority.
Okay. I think Hannah was a reappointment probably, because I feel like I had appointed, or that she was in a reappointment phase. Or was that her second term on that body? Do you know?
Hannah, I believe, was appointed about a year ago.
Okay.
She's is still a member of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, I was like,
just resigning from
Okay.
Urban Forestry.
Yep, I know she served a number of ways. Carlos as well. Full disclosure, Carlos is my cousin.
Small.
And then the Land Bank Board, that their first meeting was in January.
I'm not certain on that.
Well, within this year, right? Or within the last 18 months. And so Tammy Vandenberg resigned after a few meetings. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Isasi. I really appreciate Ms. Vandenberg's dedication to our city, and all of the folks that Ms. Bosker listed. Carlos Calderon and I worked at WEMEAC together, so I know they're going through some shifts and changes, as many nonprofits are, but we're so thankful for all of the folks who serve on our boards and commissions. And I believe, as for the public, all of the land bank appointments are mayoral. So hopefully the mayor, I will connect with the mayor moving forward to see who will fill Ms. Vandenberg's position. So any further comments or concerns, colleagues? Thank you so much. The clerk's office. Oh, yes, Commissioner Isasi.
Yep. So I just wanted to, we're now past the filing deadline, and we know that this is going to be a busy election year. I want to say thank you to the city clerk and Ms. Kathy Harris for doing a presentation at our neighborhood summit this week, just to really make sure people are engaged in understanding our processes. I think that we know that the department is going to be very busy this year, and but we also have a lot of good staff members that are not always up here, but are doing work in the clerk's office. So just want to remind us that if we start thinking, I know, Ms. Bosker, you've done a lot of things to put not every appointment at the end of the year to help us with the management of that. I just want to keep reminding us, colleagues, as we go into these next couple of months, just are there things that we need to remind liaisons, like, hey, we really need you to follow up on this, or even just like even just setting the stage if we need to make sure we're balancing all the work of the clerk's office. So just wanted to put that out there because this will be a busy election season. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Isasi. Ms. Bosker and I are continuing to meet before our meetings, and I will continue as the chair to push that out to our colleagues, and our colleagues have some individual appointments as well. So thank you so much for that reminder. Any further comments, concerns for the good of the order? All right. That is a longer meeting for us, but good work. We will adjourn the Committee on Appointments at 8:08 a.m. Have a great morning.
Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and call our fiscal committee meeting to order. We have a number of items. First is a resolution approving a $67,000 agreement with Access of West Michigan for the urban agricultural project at Joe Taylor Park. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved in support. Ms. Claypool?
Good morning, Laura Claypool with the Parks Department. So you have a resolution that authorizes an agreement with Access of West Michigan to implement a community-based urban agriculture project at Joe Taylor Park. It's in the amount of $67,000, and the funding funding is coming from a grant that we received from Eagle for environmental justice. Through this partnership, Access will develop new gardening and orchard and native plant infrastructure and deliver a full season of community-led programming. Activities will run May 1st of 26 through September of 27 and will support the city's broader effort in expanding urban agriculture opportunities throughout the community.
Great. Questions, colleagues? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you. Next, or well, I guess you're staying up here. Next is a resolution approving an $83,000 agreement with Jade Rabbit for agricultural projects at Garfield and MLK Parks.
Sure.
So moved?
Support.
Ms. Claypool?
Same situation. So this one is with Jade Rabbit to implement projects at both Garfield Park and MLK Park in the amount of $83,000, again, funded through that same Eagle Environmental Justice Grant. Jade Rabbit will develop and activate new agricultural spaces at both parks, cultivation work, education, volunteer education, and community-focused programming, and that will take place, again, May 1st of 2026 through September of 27, and we'll just continue to expand food access, environmental health, and community capacity in neighborhood parks.
I have a question. Why am I raising my hand?
You have the mic, Commissioner. I think you're good.
First grade. My question is, these are Eagle grants, but I know Jade Rabbit has done some other activation for us. Was this a renewable grant that we got, or is this a new?
No, it's a new grant, and it's twofold. It's
Okay.
one for building out infrastructure, and two for the actual programming and community education around
Got
the
it.
urban agriculture.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. So in line with that questioning, I know when we had the new community center at MLK Park, there used to be community gardens there. So will this be in restoration of the community gardens that were present?
So Jade Rabbit will be doing work at two separate parks. The work that they're doing, a smaller part of the funding that organization is receiving is for the programming piece at MLK. When we did the park reconstruction, we did include in that project the rebuild of the infrastructure at MLK Park. The other side of that grant is through Garfield Park, and that it will be both the infrastructure and the programming side of things. But when we did the project, we did build out that replacement of the infrastructure at MLK.
Awesome. So that's already replaced. So this is sort of a new
Yeah, exactly.
new thing. And I'm so thankful to hear this. Both of these are great and coming to the south side. And then in addition, as we know, we have so many great ideas and goals within our climate action adaptation plan. And I think it is wonderful to see staff continue to look for innovative ways to fund these things, right? Not creating additional pressure to our neighbors, but seeking different funding. So thankful for the state and for your staff and all of our staff here at the city for finding ways to support these goals that we've put forth for our neighbors. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Commissioner. We appreciate that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you. Next is a resolution accepting a grant award in the amount of $412,500 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to be matched with the city's share of $137,500 in connection with Plaster Creek Advanced Assistance.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Mr. Roots?
Good morning.
Morning.
James Utz, Environmental Services Manager. ESD applied for a hazard mitigation grant through FEMA for the assessment and preliminary engineering for the 66-inch Plaster Creek sanitary sewer trunk line. Plaster Creek is highly susceptible to I&I during wet weather events. This project will include a field investigation, assessment of the mains, and a preliminary design. What you have before you is a resolution for the acceptance of the $412,500 from FEMA as a grant with a matched $137,500, which was included in the FY26 ESD budget and approved by City Commission on May 20th of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you. Next is a resolution authorizing a budget substitution for $305,338 for installation of duck bank on Stocking Avenue from First Street to Fourth Street. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Mr. McCall?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff McCaw, City Engineering. Yes, this project has a companion award item on CD later this morning. The project consists of a new duct bank in Stocking Avenue from First to Fourth. It's replacing some failed duct, and it will be installing new duct, a manhole, a new primary cable. We had 5 bids on the project. They're approximately 17% under the engineer's estimate, and this item will just move, do a budget substitution to move funding to fund a portion of the project.
Great, thank you. Questions, colleagues? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Thank you. Next is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Mesmerize in an amount not to exceed $40,000 to promote GR Pay It on rapid buses for the city treasurer's office.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported?
Yeah.
I was like,
I was going to say, John, our city treasurer is out today. He did reach out to me to cover this item. This is exactly what it says. It's the advertising for GR Pay It on our city buses. We previously did this campaign 2 separate times, in January through March of 2023, as well as January through March of 2024. We took a pause in 2025, and now we're going to run the new program July 1st through September 30th. One thing we believe it did is it got the name GR Pay It out there in the community, where we've had double-digit growth for over the past 9 years for GR Pay It. Also, one other nice perk of this advertising method is the two previous times we did it, we'd be walking around the city, after March, with these contracts expired, and still see the advertising on the bus, and it stays there until they get someone else to, put the new contract up on the bus. So we often get a couple extra months as a result. So it's great bang for our buck, and we recommend putting this forward.
I would add
thank you.
that
Yes, Mr. Bolt.
Yeah.
I would add that GR Pay It has been an incredibly cost-effective way of processing payments for the Treasurer's Office. As Ms. Claren mentioned, customer adoption has increased year on year on year ever since we launched several years back. So this is one of the most cost-effective advertising methods in order to accomplish that.
Okay, great. Colleagues, questions for either Ms. Claren or Mr. Bolt? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. I am just curious if you have any specific targets or goals for the purpose of this, or is just general awareness? Do you expect to see any further growth than the double digit, et cetera?
We do expect additional increase in adoption. Now, just simply by the way percentages work, it's logarithmic where there's only so many more of our customers who aren't already using Pay It, but certainly we do expect continued adoption increases.
All right, hearing no other question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next is our bid list resolution for April 28th, 2026. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Claren, is there any ones that you want to highlight?
Oh, no, just 3 items this morning. Myself or the departments are here to answer any questions.
Colleagues, any questions on the bid list? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution carries. And with that, that's all of our business. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is our comptroller's report, comptroller's warrant report for the period of March 31st, 2026 through April 13th, 2026, in the amount of $39,332,002.06. Mr. Comptroller?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the period reference, cash payments were released totaling approximately $39.2 million. That amount includes just over $5.8 million for employee payroll payments and just over $157,000, for income tax warrants. In terms of quantity, 648 income tax refunds were issued and 1,037 AP checks and electronic payments were issued. These funds were issued for payment by individuals not in the city comptroller's office and not in accordance with the Grand Rapids City Charter. And that concludes the report that I have for you this morning.
Thank you. Questions, colleagues, for the comptroller? All right, with that, that report is received and filed. And our last item for today is the treasurer's report for the period of April 1st, 2026 through April 14th, 2026. Mr. Bolt?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again. Market expectations of the path of interest rates going forward have stabilized somewhat. Short-term rates that are controlled by the Federal Reserve are unlikely to change in any material way in the next year. Now, of course, that is subject to global economic events. The nomination of the next Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, is likely to proceed, but is also very likely to be dragged out over time. So don't expect an immediate confirmation on that. But some immediate challenges will face whoever has that job. The global macro economic environment is inflationary, especially with the events that are occurring in the Middle East. And unrelated to those events, private credit markets domestically have been deteriorating, and whoever has that chair position is going to be responsible for making sure that if that deteriorates further, becomes a crisis contagion, that it's contained within those private markets and doesn't negatively impact the overall financial system. However, the task of the Treasurer's Office is to ensure the safety of city money and ensure the liquidity is available when it's needed, and then obviously try to capture a competitive yield. To that end, we've been able to navigate the financial markets fairly successfully. The only securities that we buy are of the highest quality. And for instance, most recently, we invested a little over $7 million in bonds issued by the Michigan State Housing Development Authority that were issued for affordable housing development projects throughout the state. Now, the state of municipal debt, let's just say I sit on the opposite side of Ms. Claren. She loves it when issues are oversubscribed. I hate it because I don't get all the bonds I want. So that issue was roughly 3 to 4 times oversubscribed. So we only got roughly a third of what we were trying to, but still that's kind of expected and normal for that market. But at the moment, the total portfolio is roughly $680.9 million, yielding 3.23%. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Questions, colleagues, for Mr. Bolt sitting in today for the treasurer? All right. Hearing none. So with that, that report will also be received and filed, and we will be adjourned at 8:43. Thanks.
All right, good morning, everyone. The time is now 9:15. We are going to get today's Community Development Committee meeting started. Item number 1 this morning is a resolution awarding a contract with Lodestar Construction, Inc. for extension of energy lighting and communications primary circuit in Wealthy Street and Front Avenue in the amount of $1,663,531.30 with total amount not to exceed $3,033,365. Is there a motion?
Support?
Moved and supported. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, this project will install new concrete encased duct bank down Wealthy Street to the proposed solar array at the Butterworth landfill. You may recall back in February of '26, Commission approved a power purchase agreement with Enerlogix Networks for proposed solar array at the landfill. Lodestar was one of 5 bidders on the project. They're approximately 50% under the engineer's estimate. They'll be utilizing 2% MLBE participation and subcontracting a total of $1,383,000 on the project. The majority of the project, about 96% of it, is paid for by a state of Michigan grant.
Wonderful, thank you. Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 2 this morning is a resolution awarding a contract with Lodestar Construction, Inc. for installation of duct bank on Stocking Avenue from 1st Street to 4th Street in the amount of $400,298 with total not to exceed amount of $570,000.
So moved. Support?
Moved and supported. Mr. McCall.
Yeah, another project with Lodestar Construction. They were one of 5 bidders, approximately 17% under the engineer's estimate. They'll be utilizing 6.87% MLBE participation and subcontracting $27,500. The project will be installing new duct bank and a manhole, a riser, and primary cable, all to replace some conduit that's failed, some existing conduit.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 3 is a resolution awarding a contract with Ann Land Corporation for water main replacement and improvements in Plymouth Avenue from Alger Street to Burton Street in the amount of $3,416,216.33 with a total amount not to exceed $4,407,950. Motion?
Support?
Moved and supported.
Yes, this project will be installing new water main on Plymouth between Alger and Burton. There's also a portion of the project that will line an existing water main under the railroad tracks. We'll be resurfacing the project. The memo does say the work's planned for 2026. The contractor had the option for 26 or 27. Anlon has since picked up a pretty big job in the city of Wyoming, so they've now elected to build the project in 2027. So that was kind of after the memo had been submitted. They'll be subcontracting about $880,000 on the project. The city's bid discount program could not be used due to the we have State of Michigan revolving loan fund dollars on the project, and that did not allow our discount program to be used. And they're also not using any MLBE contractors. We had 6 bids on the project. The low bid was approximately 2.5% under the engineer's estimate. This is one of 9 projects that'll be part of a DWRF loan with an estimated cost of $18 million. And of that amount, approximately $5.4 million will have principal forgiveness based on the final dollar value of the loan.
Thank you for that overview. Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 4 is a resolution accepting 2 utility easements at 2562 Linda Avenue Southeast and 2568 Linda Avenue Southeast in connection with Irene and Linda Water Main Extension for a combined total of $7,770.
Support?
Moved and supported.
Yeah, this is a proposed project in our customer community of Cascade. It's being funded by an alternative water supply grant agreement with the state of Michigan. And these are a couple of the easements that are necessary for the project. We do plan to bid that project later this year. Yes?
Are these in relation to any of the PFAS contamination that was out in that area, or is this a separate project?
Yes, there's a number of projects in Cascade. We've recently completed Burger Goodwood neighborhood, Phase 1 and 2. I think all the homes there have been connected. These two streets also have PFAS, and yeah, that's the reason for the grant. And then there's, I think, another area in Cascade that Eagle is working with Cascade Township on directly, so, and also the water system.
Thank you.
Great connection. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5 is a resolution setting Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 at 7 p.m. as a date of the public hearing for the City Commission to sit as a board of review to hear appeals on Special Assessment Roll 8804 for the Uptown Business Improvement District. Is there a motion?
Support.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. This is for the Uptown Business Improvement District Special Assessment Roll. At the request of the City Commission and the Uptown Business Improvement District Board, the Assessor's Office has prepared the Special Assessment Roll number 8804 in accordance with the Business Improvements District's plan that was adopted by the Commission last year in March of 2025. This is the second year of a 5-year plan that was approved. Property owners were sent notices on April 14th of this year and notified the charge and the appeal process. This item today is to set the public hearing for May 12th for the City Commission to convene as Board of Review to hear appeals on these assessments.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 6 is a resolution, thank you, Ms. Post. Number 6 is a resolution to schedule a public hearing on May 12, 2026 to consider an amendment to the City of Grand Rapids Brownfield Plan for the Indiana Avenue Northwest Redevelopment Project located at 335 and 343 Indiana Avenue.
Support.
Ms. Porter, good
Thank you,
morning.
Commissioner. This is a brownfield plan, housing TIF project. The plan is to demolition the 2 existing structures and construct a new mixed-use 4-story building with 29 housing units, where 6 of the units will be 80% AMI or below, which is 20%. There's $6 million in total hard costs, and just shy of 1.4 million specific to the eligible activities for the brownfield TIF, where most of those are related to potential rent loss. There's almost $250,000 in micro-local women-owned and minority-owned inclusion plan aspirational goals. And then the next item is related to the NEZ, so I'll just sit tight.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Belshaw?
I'm not sure this is a question, but this is near my immediate neighborhood and near my home. And these are some old buildings that have been there for a very long time in a very dilapidated state. And I think it's only a block or so away from Bridge Street with the other new housing that's going on. So to see 29 units being proposed is a great opportunity.
Seeing no other comments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 7 is a resolution scheduling a public hearing for May 12, 2026 to consider the establishment of a neighborhood enterprise zone for the Indiana Avenue Northwest Redevelopment Project located at 335 and 343 Indiana Avenue.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Yes, this is exemption certificate for a neighborhood enterprise zone. This is, again, the 29 unit new construction 4-story residential unit building. And the important point to note here is that there's a base approval of 9 years. And so because they are setting aside 20% at 80% AMI, there's an additional 6 years. So it's a total of 15 years exemption. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we are adjourned at 9:24. Thank you, folks.
Going to try to call Committee of the Whole to order. You know, at night we have a moment of silence to make that happen, so glad you're all enjoying yourselves. Thank you for coming. The first item on our agenda, which is probably why we have such a packed room, is our resolution on Public Safety Recognition Week. Pardon me, Public Service. What did I say? Public Safety. Sorry. Public Service Recognition Week. And I want to hand off to our city manager before I go up and read the proclamation. And we usually have a photo op after this, but I do want to say, I'm just going to start with an anecdote. I was at a dinner last week and sitting next to an individual who works in HR who told me that she'd been out in the private sector making more money and looked at her life and decided that she wanted to work to make the city better. And so she came and worked in HR for the city. And that's awesome. So I can't say often enough how grateful we all are for the vocational work that you all do, those of you who work for the city. Lots of us work in civic engagement in volunteer work and things like that, but people who show up every day and do the work of making our city work really deserve our gratitude. So I'm going to hand it off to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. I, too, want to express my appreciation and gratitude to the over 1,700 regular full-time employees and the over 1,000 members of our contingent part-time seasonal workforce for the work that you do day in, day out, not often celebrated and are very often critiqued and criticized, but you do it very faithfully. So I really want to thank those that are here. Those that are here today are representing some of our employees who have been honored over the past year, so I look forward to hearing more about it after your proclamation, and we hear from our HR director, and I think we have a member of our workforce that's also going to address us this morning. Thank you, Mayor.
Awesome, thank you. So why don't I go up and read the proclamation? All right. So I'm going to read the proclamation, then I'm going to present it to Ovell. Whereas our citizens residing in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan are served every single day by public servants at the local government level, these are our unsung heroes. And whereas day in and day out, they provide excellent city services as expected by our residents with efficiency and integrity, the excellent level of services that are provided are of vital importance to a growing, sustainable, and resilient community and the well-being of citizens and visitors to Grand Rapids. And whereas, without these public servants at every level of government, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials. Now, therefore, I, David LeGrand, Mayor of the City of Grand Rapids, proclaim the week of May 3 to 9, 2026 as Public Service Recognition Week in honor of the thousands of public servants that work for Grand Rapids City as employees, appointed elected officials, or on a board or a commission, and call on all residents to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, federal, state, county, and city.
Thank you, Mayor. In recognition of Public Service Recognition Week, we're here today to celebrate members of our city team who consistently go above and beyond in service to our community. Since May of last year, more than 150 employees have been recognized as ACE Award recipients, demonstrating what it means to deliver above customer expectations. These individuals bring to life the values of the City of Grand Rapids: accountability, collaboration, customer service, equity, innovation, and sustainability. At this time, I'd like to ask all ACE Award recipients who are present to please stand and be recognized. Please join me in giving them a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you and congratulations again. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Ken Godwin, President of the APA Union, to offer remarks on behalf of labor.
Good morning, Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners, and members of the community. On behalf of the Association of Public Administrators of Grand Rapids, I proudly stand before you representing all of the collective bargaining units. I acknowledge, in acknowledgement of Public Service Recognition Week, union leadership would like to extend our sincere thanks to each and every employee for your continued commitment to serving our community. Your dedication, professionalism, and daily contributions do not go unnoticed. We thank you for the vital work you do every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I'd now like to invite all of the ACE Award recipients to come forward for a photo with the mayor and city commissioners.
I like this outfit. Good, nice to see you. It's been a journey. You guys are doing great.
I cannot see Commissioner Knight.
Perfect, thank you.
Congratulations and thanks again.
I'm like, I like those. Yeah.
Now chamber some of these out.
No, I didn't get it.
Oh, totally.
Good luck. I'm supporting you from my desk, listening to you. Thank you.
I did not get my ticket though.
Thanks, everyone. That brings us to a second item on our agenda, which is the resolution authorizing certain special events subject to Chapter 53 of the city. Seems to have cut off. Presumably the city, pardon? Code of Ordinances.
Well, good morning, Mayor. Good morning. Oh, sorry.
So excited.
I am. I'm just so excited about all the wonderful events that are coming to the city of Grand Rapids. I apologize. Good morning, Mayor and city commissioners and staff. This resolution is to approve a slate of special events for the remainder of 2026. These events play a vital role in bringing our community together, supporting local businesses, and showcasing the character of our city. This resolution reflects careful planning to ensure that each event is safe, well-coordinated, and aligns with our broader goals for economic vitality and quality of life. All events will submit a certificate of insurance and an event action plan that will be approved by risk management, as well as our police department and fire department. This resolution does not reflect all the events that will occur in 2026, as the Office of Special Events accepts applications all throughout the year. I present this for your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Pittman. Any discussion, colleagues? Commissioner?
Good morning, thank you. Could you remind what constitutes a special event in the city?
So a special event is defined in our policy 1105 as well as our chapter 53 of the Municipal Code. So it's any gathering with an identifiable time and place of bringing people together on public property.
Thank you.
Great. Any comments, any other comments or questions, colleagues? Otherwise, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our next item, which is an approval, a resolution recommending approval of a Liquor Control Commission or Social District permit application for MRA Vandenberg Enterprises, transacting business as Sugar Bar located at 132 Monroe Center. Can I have a motion?
Support.
Anyone to discuss this for us?
So to give you the location, this is kind of where the dog pit was in I think the macaron cookie store or whatever, over by Rosa Parks Circle. So that's that location. So this gives them, obviously they're in this social district, and this gives them the permit application, to serve certain drinks with labeling that they can walk around in the social district with it.
Great. So does the social district already exist?
Yes, the downtown social district.
Right, and new entrants have to essentially opt into the mechanism.
Correct.
By resolution. Okay. Any comments or questions, colleagues? Then, did I ask for a motion? I'm sorry, I forgot. Got a motion. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to our third resolution, which is for a brownfield plan amendment to 528 Bridge Street development located at 528 and 532 Bridge Street Northwest. And up to explain that one is Ms. Renero. Can I have a motion?
Support.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, this is the final step for the Brownfield Plan Amendment Resolution before we would send the packet to the state. This is activating the existing building at Bridge and Seward for commercial office space, and also an opportunity to activate a sidewalk adjacent on Seward, which is awesome. So this is traditional brownfield TIF, which is demolition, site prep, infrastructure improvements. To the tune of $710,831. The total private investment is $2.7 million, and I'm happy to take any questions.
And just for the public's information, this is a project we've taken a look at already in other components, but this is the brownfield component. So,
yes.
Colleagues, any comments or questions? Great. Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to a resolution for a 12-year industrial facilities exemption certificate for Falk Sheet Metal for a $5.4 million project located at 1782 North Bridge Northwest in Walker View Industrial Park. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
And Ms. Renell?
Great. Yes, thank you. This is for the industrial facilities exemption certificate for 12 years. The district was established in 2019, and again, this is for Falk Sheet Metal, which is adding a 50,000 square foot production facility to the tune of $5.4 million. And the abatement will be roughly $1.1 million over the 12-year period. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? And just again, for the public, this is not our first view of this project. And obviously, if I recall correctly, there's some jobs come along with this and not simply
8 jobs.
Right.
And the next step will be the state tax commission.
Thank you. All in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our next resolution, setting May 12, 2026 as a date to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 28 of the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Wilson. Oh, can I have a motion?
Support.
Lots of support. Thank you. Good morning, Commission. Kristen Turkelson, Planning Director. So this item, as well as the next, are virtually our companion items. Together, they would allow for the issuance of a municipal civil infraction for violations of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Currently, violations of that ordinance proceed from a notice of violation to a misdemeanor. So the amendment would actually bring the enforcement of the Historic Preservation Ordinance into alignment with other city ordinances and enforcement practices, including zoning. The city's Historic Preservation Commission did recommend approval to you of this modification. And I'll also note that this is actually one of several efforts that the Planning Department is working on to evaluate current ordinances, the administration of those ordinances, and enforcement of them. For example, at the next commission meeting, we'll be introducing an amendment to streamline the appeals process for the crime prevention through environmental design, or the CPTED ordinance. And of course, in June, the commission will be receiving an update on the city's zoning ordinance, which would include administration and enforcement of the same. So thank you for your time this morning, and happy to answer any questions.
Colleagues, I do have a question myself. So there's a two-part enforcement mechanism here. And I would just say for my colleagues that I'm not comfortable passing this as drafted. I mean, this is we're only talking about setting a hearing right now. But as drafted, what this does is it sort of kicks the misdemeanor down the road, but it still leaves it on the books. So if we recall our discussion about the noise ordinance, we removed criminalization entirely from that ordinance. I frankly think we should do the same thing here, because there are two ways that you can get compliance from people. One is the civil infraction, but then the other is the civil penalties and remedies under MCL 33.215. Essentially, this is what we're talking about is property, and that means it's got value. And I think that the vast majority of these, well, whether or not they're owner-occupied, a lot of these are owner-occupied properties, and I really don't have much of an appetite for ultimately giving somebody a criminal conviction. As drafted, it's much better because it makes the criminal conviction for a fourth violation. But I know that in some jurisdictions, there have been rulings that say that, let's say the violation is peeling paint on your front window. That on the second day, that can be every day that you willfully don't correct your violation can be seen as your second offense, your third offense, your fourth offense. And I know that's not how we deal with things in Grand Rapids right now, but potentially we could. So that's a concern for me. But the bottom line is, let's say someone willfully doesn't comply with this. At the end of the day, we can use money penalties to enforce compliance, and in fact, I think to have correction. So I'm very reluctant to have even somebody who's grumpy and not cooperative with historic wind up with a criminal offense at the end of the day. So I would suggest, colleagues, that we amend this ultimately and move towards something that only has fines and costs, and then we discuss whether a fourth offense gives you a significant fine and cost, but not a criminal conviction. So could you speak, Ms. Turkelson? That's a long statement, but could you speak to Section 333.201, like what the other enforcement mechanisms are there besides simply fines?
Sure. So when we start out with an enforcement practice, of course, it would become a notice of complaint where we make an individual aware that there's concerns associated with their property and specifically the compliance with certain ordinances, in this case, of course, the preservation ordinance. From there, if we were not to receive any communication or cooperation, it then does escalate. It proceeds to a notice of a notice of correction, then a notice of violation. Should we not be able to resolve the concerns, which I would say is fairly limited in terms of the number of times we are not able to resolve an issue prior to the issuance or even upon the issuance of a notice of violation, we would then proceed to a civil infraction. I feel a little bit out of my element without working with our code compliance department to better understand when we go from a civil infraction to a misdemeanor. Happy to feel more prepared for that specific transition when I come back to you. But that would be the step that would take place.
Yep, I just wanted to lay that out so we can consider that. particularly since some of these things are things where, well, anyway, we can leave it at that. This is a motion to set a hearing for that, so.
It's
Pardon me.
It's not a hearing.
To consider it.
To consider, sorry. So any other questions or comments, colleagues? Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, having served on our Housing Appeals Board, I feel like our code compliance does a very good job of really not getting to that point. I've seen some very extreme homes lacking safety measures and saying that it's historic preservation, so they don't want to put in safety measures. Our code compliance does a great job with that, but even with that, I would be supportive of aligning it with our goals of not being criminalized. I would be supportive of that. And just wondering, so of course I'm supportive of the consideration now, and then wondering how we move forward with changing the ordinance as presented a little bit now.
Mayor, we would work with Ms. Turkelson and our city attorney in looking at some of the feedback we've heard from two of you today. I'm wondering if that is the majority of the commission, though.
I will concur with what has been said.
Okay. Everyone else comfortable leaving it a misdemeanor?
This is up for consideration right now. I think we need to have an opportunity to look at it a little bit deeper and think about all.
Your mic, Commissioner.
It's on. Sorry. Y'all can't hear? Hello? Man. Nope. I think this is just up for consideration right now, but I think there's an opportunity again to look at the totality of the circumstances and what is and what has happened in the past, right? We don't know how many people have been locked up or put in jail for any of these situations, so it'd be interesting to really kind of see what all of that looks like. And then think about, what can some of the process look like before we get to that point. I mean, I've kind of seen how the system works, and I've not seen anybody in that situation. But of course, I don't want anybody, getting this a misdemeanor for their grass being 1/4 of an inch taller than 6. So I think we need an opportunity to really look at all of the information first before making a decision like that.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I think we have our city attorney up here. These things don't end up on our agenda without a thorough review, without looking at some of the policy pieces. So, I mean, is there anything else that, to your point, city manager, that we should be considered from a legal standpoint, city attorney?
I think either pathway is legal. I have some thoughts about the equity involved here. We're talking about buying your way into compliance if you want to just keep paying a fee to stay out of compliance. In the Historic Preservation District, that we know where that is. I haven't done a deep dive or asked for staff to evaluate the equity of decriminalizing this particular provision, but it's something that as we're trying to reduce the access to the criminal justice system by providing more civil fines before that in this effort. So I think that is in line with some of the intention I've heard from this body in the past to completely decriminalize it and take one way towards compliance or getting someone's attention. I'd want to know the impact from a staff perspective too, but we can do that.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion, colleagues? All right, all in favor of the resolution, then say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, resolution passes. Thank you. And that brings us to our next resolution, setting May 12, 2026 as the date to consider an ordinance amending municipal city infractions. And I think that's a companion essentially, so I understand, but because that's essentially a companion, I think let's have a motion if I can.
I'll move.
Support.
Okay, all in favor of, any discussion, colleagues? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. That brings us to resolution for public hearing on proposed property taxes, public hearing for Tuesday, May 12. But before we do that.
I would ask that we take these out of order if you could, Mayor, if I could present the budget and we come back to those. Is that okay?
Yep. I just wanted to point out that resolutions 8 and 9 probably should come properly after our discussion of the preliminary fiscal plan for the budget. And City Manager?
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners and staff. Joel, if you can bring the presentation up before we start. Before we start, while we're bringing that up, I want to take a moment and thank the staff and publicly acknowledge all the hard work and collaboration that goes into an effort like this. This is no easy lift, and no one person can do this, and there are hundreds of people across the organization that have made this possible. So first I want to thank our fiscal services staff for their guidance and professionalism, as that is their major role almost every day, to be thinking about the budget and making sure that we have sound financial practices, as well as our budget office team, specifically who is the backbone of the process and works very closely with department directors. I would be remiss if I did not thank my executive office. You see them before you with all of those books in front of them. That is the budget that we'll deliver here shortly, for their partnership and strategic direction that helps to align the work of the organization. And lastly, all the department directors and budget managers and office staff, some of who are assembled today, others who are in the departments doing the work, not only for your thoughtful planning, anticipation of what some of the needs of our cities will be, but also the execution of the budget and delivery on the many of the important services. So with that, I am pleased to prepare to present our fiscal year 27 preliminary plan. You will hear from our CFO shortly, Molly Claren, who has been very pivotal and instrumental in helping us get to this point. And today we are not expecting the City Commission to make any decisions. This is an introduction. You will get the full detailed budget for your review. We have almost a month of deliberations, but today I do want to hear at the conclusion of our briefing if there are particular areas that you are interested to see us highlight more in the coming weeks. So that would be very helpful. You will be tempted today to stop at any point of this presentation and ask a question, make a point, agree with something, disagree. What I will ask you to do is exercise some discipline in just letting us get through the presentation. We're going to have plenty of opportunity for deliberation and a brief introduction, and then we'll hold questions to the end, if that's okay with everyone. So this is a journey that we've started a long time ago. Actually, it started even before your prioritization workshop. Last September, we did our annual performance presentation, and that became the foundation for where we were as an organization at the end of fiscal year 25, as we began to plan the work for fiscal year 26 and 27. And so we've had the mid-year performance update in February, had good feedback from you both in November and February. All of that has been taken in consideration, along with the input that we've heard from numerous committees and commissions, and as well as taking feedback from our citizen survey, had led us to this point in formalizing the budget today. As you'll see, there are two work sessions on the 5th and the 12th. On the 5th, we will go in more detail over governmental excellence, safe community, mobility. You'll hear from our Vital Streets Oversight Commission, as well as we'll talk more about our engagement work in the city. And then on the 12th, we'll continue discussions and focus specifically on economic prosperity and affordability and our health and environment as we get ready for the hearing in your ultimate adoption of the budget on the 19th. Our roadmap and values remain the same as you've heard during the presentation earlier about Public Services Week. The entire organization is aligned around our 6 core values. that was highlighted earlier, as well as the alignment around our priorities as an organization, which you'll see the budget themes are grouped in consistent with those priorities. If you recall, during your 2026 workshop, in addition to having Dr. Funkhauser come and talk to us about how we collectively work in the Commons and do work together as a governing body, we also reaffirmed the focus areas around those 6 priority areas, those things that we really wanted to pay attention to. And you'll see in this budget that we've addressed a lot of the areas that we've talked about previously. This year's budget represents a $785 million investment in all across all city funds and $206.7 million for the general fund. What we have proposed is a continuation of all basic services, and with one exception. There are 2 grant-funded positions that we'll talk about that are not assumed in the budget, but will have to be reconsidered by the City Commission to be added in. There's also some other points of policy we want to have some deliberations on to more accurately target some of the spending that is in the proposal. We continue to use the strategic plan as our roadmap, and you can see the decrease in the millage rate, even though there's an associated increase in property values that will result in a slight overall increase to taxpayers. The millage rate is decreased. So a couple of things, just from a macro level, again, highlighting the investment in all of our basic city services. And when you look at our water system, both with water, wastewater, and stormwater, significantly, the health and environment section of the budget, and specifically our water, wastewater services, is a considerable investment, over $200 million there. Our second highest investment as an organization is in public safety. Both police and fire, collectively over $125 million when you look at both departments' combined budgets, $75.4 million for police, $48.3 million for fire. And economic development, $56.4 million, and you see the other investments in core services, $48 million for vital streets, $40 million for parks and community services, and continuing to keep our city not only safe and recreational, but also clean, with $21 million for our refuse and recycling programs. And you see the investments in the library and the courts. And we'll talk more about the courts. We are very pleased with how the court has been run over the past couple of years. This is really not an increase in the court's budget, but the general fund continues to subsidize the court at around $10 million of that $13 million operating cost. As you've heard earlier, how, there is no municipal services without municipal employees. You saw some of them earlier this week. We continue to invest in our employees. Total personnel services over $236 million. That also includes the continued funding for the second year of all of our collective bargaining agreements. We've had some previous conversations around the public safety funding that we are expected to receive from the state. We still have not received that as of yet. We thought it would come in fiscal year 26. We're hopefully that we will actually receive that in 27. But with that, we did make a budget amendment last year in anticipation for that to add 10 police positions, as well as anticipating how we can use the other $400,000 for crime prevention that's not traditional policing, with sworn officers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. What we've been thinking is of that $400,000, perhaps use half of that for community-oriented crime prevention services and look and see where there are already existing programs that are outside of the police department within the organization that we could continue to amplify. Or I know there's been a lot of discussion about enhancing some of our reconciliation, mediation efforts as a city, and perhaps that could be used for that as well. A couple other things I would highlight. We did talk about the DASH. Our mobile GR director highlighted that change for us. both at our mid-year update and we had subsequent conversation. I know Mobile GR Commission has talked about it. It's been well covered in the media. The fiscal impact of that is pretty significant. It helps us to, by making those changes, reducing the amount of buses that we have in our circulator, we avoid over $7 million in capital costs over the next 5 years. That takes a tremendous amount of relief off the parking fund. And that is also going to help us sustain our current on-street parking rate. There are no increases for on-street meter parking. There are no increases for on-street meter parking. There are no increases in on-street meter parking. But we're able to do that because of the changes that were made in the dash, as well as it helps us to avoid a $1.6 million annual operating costs for operating the parking fund. So we'll see. It's still a pilot, but we'll see how those services are received, particularly as we open up some of the new assets and venues around the city. We do have, while there are no added positions for the general fund, again, continuity budget, we do have about 14 positions that are being recommended in non-general operating fund departments, and among the departments are environmental services, water, mobile GR, parks, and engineering. These are enterprise funds that are able to absorb the cost either by fees or services for those positions. We did find a way to continue an investment in the personal belongings storage program that we partnered with Mel Trotter Ministries in. Previously, if you recall, we were able to use or leverage some of the recovery money from ARPA. I think for the first 2 years or so of that program. This is the last year we will have ARPA funding available to us, and so we had to find another source of funding. We found $100,000 from the refuse fund to allow us to continue to invest in that program. We also are talking to partners around the city and our philanthropic community to see if they too would be willing to invest in a storage program to help keep our city clean, but also to help those who are unhoused have a respectable, decent place to store their belongings. And again, while we have not had, we expect the discontinuation of the retail retention program with our other partners from the Chamber and DGRI. There is $60,000 that still remains in the proposed 2027 budget to have some contracted program. And we are going to be potentially releasing an RFP to see if we can get someone to respond to that if they're willing to be a contractor for the city and help us with our retail retention and attraction. A couple other things I want to highlight. You've already approved the water rates previously, and so we assume those increases in the budget, approximately 2.5% on both, for a combination of both systems. Again, I highlighted earlier, there are no change to the hourly on-street parking rates. However, the maximum special event rate for our ramps is already at $25. We've just applied it to several new places, our lots and ramps rather. We've applied it to several new places, particularly that are opening up closer to the amphitheater. We'll talk more about that during our mobility briefing. Monthly parking rates have increased, consistent with cost of living, roughly 3%. And we have electric charging transitions to energy-based pricing model for our EV stations. So a couple other things that over the course of the budget process we will be looking to get feedback on. We've had a lot of discussion around the $8.5 million of the roads funding that will be coming to us from the state. Again, we have still not received that yet. There is some strategy on how we might allocate that creatively in addition to focusing on pedestrian safety and mobility. There's been some discussion around what we can do collectively across the county around deer management, as well as thinking about how we can continue to make our community safer. I know Commissioner Belshack had asked previously about our fund balance, and you'll hear more from our CFO, but we are in a very, very good financial position. So, such that this year we are recommending transferring $7 million to our budget stabilization fund, and will likely come back to you with a budget amendment to do that in this fiscal year. And our CFO can talk a little bit more about the timing of that. But that will continue to position us with so much economic uncertainty at the international, national, and sometimes even at the state level. I think it does us well to continue to reassure us that we will be able to withstand any unanticipated changes that will affect us economically by bolstering our rainy day fund. I mentioned there are two positions that are not assumed in this budget. There are two grant positions. One is out of the Office of Equity and Engagement. The other, I think that's a half a position actually for fiscal year 27. The other is out of our sustainability office, and similar to last year, we'll talk a little bit more about those functions, and you will get the opportunity to let us know if you would like to continue those programs and services. If so, then we will come back and make changes to the budget by the time you adopt it. The other conversation I want to have at some point is around the commission enhanced support and communication enhancements that you've had over the past year. We've had a 6-month pilot. We extended it another 6 months, so now it's been a year. We submitted a report. We did not get an opportunity to very thoroughly discuss that report, so we did not assume the conversion of the pilot into a permanent program, permanent staffing, permanent programming. However, if that is the wish of this body, we certainly would do that. In the absence of that, we are prepared to extend the pilot for a short time period to allow for that deliberation to occur. We also included $50,000 for a disaster relief fund, a local disaster relief fund, in the event that there's circumstances that happen that are unforeseen, that federal government has not declared it as a disaster and we're not eligible for federal funding. The state may have not declared it as a disaster and will not make us eligible for state funding. We thought it prudent to establish our own local disaster fund in collaboration with other community partners. So the $50,000 is proposed to be an investment with the United Way to help us with public response and recovery in the event of the disaster, working with our emergency management office. As we were formulating the budget, we thought that in addition to what is already recommended, we do have flexibility to increase that $50,000 beyond what is recommended. So by the time we adopt, if there's preference from the City Commission, we could increase that, bolster that to $100,000. So at this time, I would like to invite our CFO, Ms. Claren, to come up and take us through some of the financials.
Thank you, City Manager. So to start out, our process for putting together the budget actually starts in September, in the budget office at least. What we do all year is collect information from departments and our various committees, things like that. We get feedback, provide that to manager's office, but then we start making a revenue estimate. From there, usually, by December, we're putting together the information with departments with the turn-in deadline of January so that the city manager and his staff can start reviewing by February, March. So it is a long journey, a long process just to get to today. From there, for the good of the public, we will be having work sessions with the commission and with proposed adoption at our last meeting in May. So when we look at our fiscal plan, we consider a lot of the different guidelines we have. I always say this, one of the things that's a pleasure to be CFO here is I am standing on top of a lot of sound financial policies. We have good policies around contingencies and fund balance. We know our treasurer's office, they do really hard work, managing that investment income. But other considerations we take into account is we're self-insured. We, make sure we know what's going on as far as any liability settlements or things like that are out there as we shape this fiscal plan. So looking at that upper right-hand graph, we've already mentioned fund balance. Right now, at the end of fiscal year 25, we're at about 45%. Our policy level is 15%, so well above that. That is really just fortunate in as far as our income tax collection, performing better than expectation. And also, as we came out of COVID, one of the things we did was to get through COVID when we saw, revenues getting hit a little bit, is we put more investment towards our compliance program, which is just going after those outstanding receipts from years past that we discovered our city hadn't been, following up on as aggressively. So we worked on that through COVID and then found getting those state tapes and staying on top of things that has been a good tool to bring in extra revenue. So you can see we are, proposing to intentionally spend down our fund balance with this forecast, getting down to about 27%, with what is in the budget right now. You'll see a revised version for some of the things City Manager already talked about, but again, we're in a good financial position. We also have a budget stabilization fund. Currently, we have about $18.8 million in that budget stabilization fund. To put this simply, it's a rainy day fund. It requires 2/3 vote from our city commission to put that money to use. So if we do have another huge disruption like COVID, we see income tax plummeting, which is the main revenue engine for the general fund. We do have this reserve that the commission could choose to tap to keep services going while we ride out that disruption. Just for a note, we are with the fiscal 27 budget, while our policy is 10% of general fund spending, we are at 9.1%. So we're out of policy right now. To get up to policy will be about a $1.9 million budget amendment. You can only contribute to the budget stabilization fund when your previous fiscal year you've operated at a surplus. So that's why we are able to contribute to it now. You'll see on my next slide that our revenues, or our expenditures do exceed our revenue for fiscal year 26. That's why you see that drop in fund balance in fiscal year 26 estimate on the slide. So if we get past July 1st, we won't have that ability to use this tool to put money away. I talked a lot about the economics and things that are going on that could be threats to our operation or cause disruption at the mid-year reports. So taking that into consideration, that's why, I would urge you to, definitely consider a contribution to the Budget Stabilization Fund with the proposed contribution that would take the Budget Stabilization Fund up to about 12%. So give us a good cushion for a couple of years. Next, again, when we're putting together this financial package for you, we have a 80-20 split in our healthcare costs. We always contribute 100% to the actuarial computed contributions. And so we do have a very healthy pension and OPEB system. And then as far as our capital improvement plan, on fiscal year 26 was the first year we got back up to policy about diverting 5% of income tax to the capital improvement plan. We are sustaining that for fiscal year 27, which is great considering all the initiatives we have going on in the river and elsewhere in the city. So again, that it's good to be in policy. As far as maintenance of effort, we do have the parks investment, as well as Vital Streets, which is just our general fund commitment to supporting those. So with Vital Streets, that's about $850,000 a year. Our parks, we call it the MO, maintenance of effort. That is about 8.9 million this year. It's going to grow to about 10 million by the end of our forecast. City manager already mentioned our support towards the 61st District Court. So about 10 million, 10.1 million this year. It's going to grow up over 12 million by the end of our forecast. So again, looking for that state legislative fix, because it's not just us dealing with the court funding situation. It's a lot of our partners. So again, still leaning into that. Oh, and I will mention the public safety, as far as what's going on with fire and police as far as their share of the general fund. So police at 36.5%, that just a percentage, approximate percentage raise from last year. And that's mainly driven by adding those 10 positions, the officers and 2 sergeants. But again, that was because we are getting that public safety trust fund revenue through revenue sharing that justified that add. Fire at 23.4%. So. Moving on, just to talk about the one of the cost drivers we see in the general fund related to public safety overtime. So we have noticed that, we've been adding positions with the hope of dropping down that overtime. We're not getting the responsiveness that we thought we would, or we just need to get those new positions more time to get in there and be able to be operating. So, we have maximum coverage with what we have. So you'll see this is our overtime impact in the last couple years. We are going to engage in an overtime study with public safety, and just so we understand it more, like what is the impact of adding staff? What should we see as a drop in overtime? Understanding that scheduling impact, understanding, how the departments deploy and make sure we're following best practices, things like that. These numbers are not just straight time wages. This is the full weight of what overtime is. So it's the wages and benefits. So just including this for your information, you'll see the 27 adopted line at the bottom. As far as 26 goes, that over under, that's the approximate budget amendment we'll be bringing forward in May to get them through fiscal year 26 funding. For 27, those are the budget amounts, 4.3 million for police and 4 million for fire. Our pension system, again, we max out on that. As far as what is recommended, we always make that contribution. Remember that funding is driven also by the performance of the market. So what we contribute, also what are those assets earning? So our funded ratio is about 79.9% for the general pension. And again, keeping an eye on that, still very healthy. We are probably one of the most healthy pension systems in the state. And it's just because our commission has chosen to prioritize this and make sure we're there with our funding levels. For fire and police, we're at 74.9% funded, which is again, very, very healthy. And then moving on to OPEB, this is a combined graph of all of our OPEB systems. It's around, I believe the percentage was 93% blended. So total city revenues. You'll see charges for services is our largest category. We mentioned water and sewer before. They are big systems and are ratepayer supported, so that's the majority of what that blue big piece of pie is. And then on to income tax. Again, the main source of funding for the general fund, but we're estimating about 154.8 million this year. As far as our income tax projection goes, this year we decided to deploy the GVSU model. We talked about this a few times. That graph to the lower left shows the percentage of how much we expect base to grow over the forecast, and how this income tax is divided up. Approximately 82% goes to the general fund, with the remaining is split between vital streets, sidewalks, and capital. One thing I will note about this GVSU model, whereas before We handled forecasting internally and based things off of withholding, which went out the door when COVID happened because some people are changing up their withholding, or we have this work from home factor we couldn't get our arms around. So our forecasting kind of went, we were being more conservative than what we expected, but it was hard to get that data. So by bringing in this GVSU model, it accounts for things like residential and commercial construction, employment, weekly average wage. They have a couple sources they use for work from home trends. They also consider CPI like we did, but bring in a GDP element as well, which was interesting. So this was, they give us a couple different, like here's the best, and here's like what the floor is, so maybe it could be as high as 6%, but as low as 1%. We chose like a more positive end. This is probably the most aggressive I've seen our income tax forecast for a while. For fiscal year 27, we're looking at 4.37%, and our people we worked with, the professor we worked with over at GVSU, thought this would probably be the most reasonable track for our city. As far as property tax goes, for every dollar you spend in property tax, this is where that dollar goes. So you'll see it divided between the general fund, library fund, the refuse fund, capital improvement fund, as well as the parks fund. So again, each of those millages getting put to work on different operations. And yeah, so that's basically the array. And again, this is kind of because of like the Headley rollback, I believe it was Prop A, it's only going to be able to grow by so much. So it's kind of a strong, steady revenue. But again, we're very pleased. In this next chart, City Manager already alluded to, the Headley rollback, or how our millage rate will be going down, and it's really for a positive reason for our city is property values are going up. So again, it's a very positive story as far as how our property taxes are behaving. You'll see in the bottom right corner there, we see the impact on our residents. Average, residential taxable value going up there, and approximately the impact to a resident, about $51. So again, good story there. As far as water sewer, we adopted those rates back in December. So this is the average impact. You'll see about $20.94 for our water and sewer customers. Moving on to the American Rescue Plan, we had to obligate these funds by December of 2024. We have to have them spent by the end of December 2026. So this is as of March. I am literally hitting the OK to submit into the portal today for our reporting on this quarter, but we have about 5.6 million left. A lot of what you see left on the table in categories like provisions of government services. I know those are a lot of mobility and traffic projects that are wrapping up. Strong, healthy communities, that's our allocation towards the Greenway. And I think a couple of them might be up in provisions of governmental services as well, but we are winding down. We expect to have all of these, well spent by December. So on to the general fund. So this forecast is what is currently in the binder you are about to receive, and all those fund statements. Our expectation, you'll see fiscal year 26, our total expenditures are exceeding our total revenue, so you'll see that $2.3 million loss this year. That's mainly driven by a couple budget amendments we did this year. We decided to advance some funding on certain initiatives like the museum. That was a $4.1 million budget amendment. We also needed more money because of change orders related to the ERP. That was $690,000. So those two big things did impact this forecast. So just being mindful going forward. While it was intentional, we have talked about that 88 million. We intentionally meant to draw down that 88 million a little bit because took our fund balance as a percent of expenditures down a little bit for 2026. Sorry. So going forward to 2027, proposed budget that starts in fiscal year 27, you'll see we're pretty tight. We're positive $305,000. So should the commission decide to amend the budget and in any way be mindful of what the impact is to that, do we want to balance, and do we want to adopt a balanced budget? So just being mindful of what we're adding, where we're adding it, is it one time? Is it going to be continuous? Things like that. I would urge you, if it is the appetite to put some of that fund balance to work, make it one time, because as you know, when you add continuous things, that tends to compound. So what the city manager proposed for revisions, a lot of them are more one-time in nature. So moving on to that revised forecast, you'll see we count for the public safety revenue sharing amount. That $1.7 million is not going to arrive until September. So it's in the 27 forecast, but I'm going to take it out of the 26 forecast just to show you the impact of what that does to our fund balance. That's 1.7 we will not receive. Also, with the contribution to the budget stabilization fund of $7 million, that takes our loss to $11 million. Again, intentional. And one nice thing about the budget stabilization fund is it's still in the city's coffers, but we're making sure we're protecting ourselves for the future. So it's while it's just moving one fund to another, it's not going out. So again, good idea for a use of one-time use of money. Into 27, you'll see that $50,000 for the contribution for disaster relief. We put together the budget with $50,000 already in there. We didn't anticipate. Well, we decided, after we finished moving the numbers, 50 more thousand we could definitely afford. So that takes that balance down to 255,000 as far as our net revenue goes. And then you can see in the out forecast, we did put a placeholder of possible, labor cost increases, things like that. Good to create a placeholder for that because it is realistic. We are going to have to do something with labor contracts, but having that placeholder out in the horizon keeps us mindful of where we're going to be at the end of our forecast, which, as you see, is right at that 15% policy level. So again, this is a working revision. If you are in agreement, we can definitely bring forward those budget amendments or make those adjustments to the 27 adopted. And then this is just another visual to show you the impact of the fund balance. We do spend it down to policy level sooner. So you'll see with that orange line there. As far as personnel additions go, you'll see additions to environmental services, which again enhance plant operations as well as water. I will mention with environmental services and water, we set their revenue back we adopt their rates in December. Those new revenues kick in January, so we start seeing performance. So when they came in for budget review, we look at what the impact is of this new revenue and definitely could absorb these costs with what they had adopted previously. Mobile GR, we're enhancing support there for parking enforcement. And then right-sizing our parking facilities management and adding capacity to our team there, the planning team. Parks and Rec, we want to maintain the parks we have out there. So we have a groundskeeper addition, as well as funded by the engineering fund, we want a capital analyst. Our capital program gets more and more elaborate every year, as well as compliance work we have to do based on funding source, things like that. So again, providing some relief for staff there with that support. Moving on to the unfunded positions or programs, that top box is our grant positions mentioned before. 2 positions, the Administrative Services Officer as a Program Coordinator in Equity and Engagement. Their grant runs out in December, and so this looks like full year funding, but we would actually appropriate probably about 50% of this 155,000 to account for just needing funding through January to June. And then in our Office of Sustainability in the Executive Office, our Energy and Carbon Specialist, that grant expires, and this is the approximate 6-month cost, $63,000. So again, you know, do we want to continue these programs or allow the grants to expire? That's something up for consideration. Other things we have on here is the Commission Enhanced Support, a position as well as a contract, and then an administrative analyst, which could handle as being a mediation coordinator, helping with public relations. So that would be about $150,000. So again, just something for consideration. I spent a lot of time at mid-year talking more about our forecast, I guess, or our economic outlook. I'm even more confused now, now that we put together this budget and now we have Iran happening and all those kind of things. So I'm concerned about the cost of fuel, aluminum, steel. It's, you know, and it's ever changing. We're seeing slowing economic growth, both nationally and regionally. So again, just keeping an eye on that. I can't assure you, I was asked specifically yesterday about fuel. As far as our fleet is probably our largest user. Last few years, we have not had to tap into our $500,000 contingency. This year, we did a purchase, I believe, or we're doing a purchase this week, so we are starting to. We think we're going to be able to end the year in the budget we have, but we do have contingency for a lot of these things. In the general fund, we have $1.5 million. In fleet, we have 500,000. So we do have reserves as well as fund balance to draw from. Those are conversations we'll have as the year goes as far as the uncertainty. So, but it's good to, keep these things on the horizon. Again, being mindful of affordability is also important too, because it's not just in what's going on nationally and locally in the economy. It's not impacting just the city, it's our residents we also want to be mindful of. I mentioned the revenue buckets at mid-year, but these key revenues, again, are going to be something we're going to have to mill through over the next 2 work sessions. We have the revenue sharing Public Safety Trust Fund. This is already been put to use, and because we're not receiving that revenue in May as expected, it got pushed to September. That $1.3 million for the police department position ads. Again, we'll get that funding, but we are using a little bit of our reserves now for that. And then City Manager mentioned how we're using the rest of that funding, that $1.7 million. We have an internal city department programs as well as community-based programs for the other half of that $400,000. Other key revenues include our Third Ward equity investments. This is $1 million we put to use annually. Again, we like to fund that Grow 1000 program. We also have the youth-oriented and public health programming around $200,000. And then for 27, leading into traffic and pedestrian safety projects. The next 3 tranches of revenue handled by other bodies and by this body, so we're going to get more into that when we get into the other work sessions, but I thought I would list them here. Our Affordable Housing Fund, we're getting up to over $10 million with the sale of 201 Market. That contribution will come to you probably in May as a budget amendment to be able to send that cash out into our Affordable Housing Fund at the Community Foundation to get put to use. As far as our opioid settlement funds, right now we're having a balance around $1.1 million. With the 2027 Neighborhood Investment Plan, we're putting $800,000 to use. About $500,000 we anticipate in additional revenue this year. So that balance for by fiscal year 28 will be around $800,000. And then the Neighborhood Roads Fund. Again, this was another tranche of money that got delayed. Now we expect that in September. We'll handle that by budget amendment later, but we do want to discuss it with you during our work sessions about how to put that money to use. So overall, again, our total citywide approach, I'm almost there. Oh my gosh. Our total citywide appropriation is $785 million. Our general fund appropriation is $207 million. And with that, I can move on to the service provisions. I'm going to shift my notes. Okay. For service provisions, these, again, each department manages various fees across our city. You know, some of them require, you know, we try to make sure we get through all of them for review. We dedicate at least a third of them for, you know, maybe that extra step of review, because there's a lot of them. We have 1,272 fees total that's in this omnibus that you're going to be looking through. You'll see basically they're divided into different categories. We have fees with no recommended change, which would be code A. Fees with the cost of living adjustment, that's code B. Fees larger than the cost of living adjustment, which is basically around 3%, code C. And then fees achieving full cost, that are achieving less than full cost recovery would be code D. So as you look at the chart of fees that's attached to that commission item, you'll see them, there's a couple different attachments. First one, I believe, is just sorted by department. The rest of them are sorted by these different fee categories. If there is an area you want to dig in more deeply, but you'll see department description, you'll see description of the fee, you'll see what was adopted in 26, what is being proposed for 27, the percent of cost recovery, as well as that change code, so you can link it back to, okay, is this above or below? You know, just as far as these fees go, we are not affecting, like 63% of them are not going to be changed at all. The ones I will note for you is we have new things going on, like the MLK Community Center. We have 19 new fees associated with that, for instance. So that might be something to just take a look at for awareness. We also are doing memorial opportunities with the Parks and Rec Department. There's 4 fees related to memorial opportunities ranging from trees, benches, plaques at the parks, trails, and the nature preserve parks in the city of Grand Rapids. I believe we have some adjustments, City mentioned, to parking fees related to the garages, and then, you know, garages and event fees. So, and then I know one category, category D, where fees are not achieving full cost recovery, that's usually with a purpose. So if you do have a specific question about, like, why does it fall in that category, you'll see a lot of code compliance, planning, parks and rec, cemeteries, things of that nature, where it's probably a little more intentional. Code C, you know, where fees increased greater than the cost of living. A lot of the explanation might be, I think in the majority of cases, we haven't touched that fee in quite a few years, so sometimes it's going to be more than that 3%. So we should, you know, we'll definitely dig into it if you do have, you know, specific questions about a fee. And with that, we'll go back to the strategic plan priorities.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Claren. So real quickly, I already highlighted, much of this has been highlighted, the investments in by different strategic categories. I'm just going to highlight just a few things. There's a lot of facility management that is occurring, $442,000 for asset management projects in our various facilities. We have, we'll talk more about some of the renovations in the police department later. I know the elevator is being upgraded. There's some other facility work that's happening there. I see Phil here. $1.6 million for our public safety recruitment class for both police and fire. Economic prosperity and affordability. I appreciate CFO highlighting the Third Ward Equity Fund. But I do want to also mention, we talked about the RX Kids program previously. I know the mayor highlighted that in his State of the City, and it seems like the area of the city where there will be the most focus on for that program is the 49507 zip code. So that I've just talked to some of the community partners, and we'll be looking to make a contribution from the Third Ward Equity Fund, since it's specifically targeted to the 49507 zip code, to help leverage some of the funding that the community is raising for that. And you'll see additional $4.3 million for the MEDC Talent Grant that will help us support further placemaking and workforce development. Engage and Connected, a lot of good work to continue to make sure that we're able to reach our entire community. Do want to thank the Planning Department for the continuation of the Development with Us program that helps us to make sure that, given all the things that are happening around the city, and not just in with business corridors, but in neighborhoods, that we make sure that we're able to engage and inform residents. I know that's been a focus of this commission, to make sure that we are proactively communicating, and you see the various investments that allow us to do that, all the way up to our own clerks' efforts to make sure that voters are educated and aware. A lot of good work happening in health and environment. We highlighted some of the things that were happening in our park system. Ms. Clarion, I do want to clarify one thing on the fees. The MLK Park fees, I believe we established that already. So that's a continuation of those fees that we had previously established. But we're continuing to invest in keeping good infrastructure, making sure that we're resilient, especially doing, very unpredictable weather climate events. We continue our lead service line implementation program, as well as making sure that we enhance our efforts to prevent the risks associated with flooding along Butterworth Street. Regarding mobility, we'll have more discussion around our mobility investments. I know the $8.5 million that we're anticipating is of interest to many of you, but we continue to have $48 million for our Vital Streets programs and multimodal use. As you see some of the other major capital projects, $10 million for the Wealthy Interchange Study that the MEDC has helped us with supporting that. And you'll also see some of the positions we highlighted earlier that we're adding in terms of staff for Mobile GR. Safe community, a lot of capital investments, particularly on the fire side. Much of that was grant leverage from the state. $35 million of that has been supported through grants that will allow us to continue to develop our training center. I know we've had the ground breaking on that, as well as the fire station operations. I do want to, I didn't highlight earlier, the OPA budget. I don't think I have that on there, but I think it's a little less than $3 million, but approximately $1.7 million of that is for body cameras for the Axon contract. But again, continuation of many of the services that we highlighted previously. Real briefly, our capital plan across 5 years, roughly $560 million from 27 to 31. If you broke down the Vital Streets investment by ward, you'll see over the past 10 years, pretty equal. Fiscal 2027, we are making more investment in the second ward this year, but as you can see, through all 15 years of the program, once we complete it, it will be equal investment in each ward. And there is the breakdown of fiscal year 27 of our capital plan, $134 million across the various departments. You'll see some of the projects that are listed in each ward, not all projects, but highlights of those that are in the first ward. Similarly, second ward and the third ward, It's in more detailed in both the budget submittal as well as you had, I believe that's in your packet, as well as our projects in our neighborhood of focus across the various wards. So I know we've talked a lot. I'm going to pause and just see what questions you might have, areas of further interest you might want us to explore over the next few weeks. But if you have questions beyond today, please submit your questions to me or our CFO directly. We will determine whether or not that's a question that should be answered by the budget office or requires additional research from staff outside of the fiscal office, but we've asked these departments for a lot of information, so we want to be respectful of their time and not ask them to resubmit things that have already resubmitted. So that's why I'm asking you to direct your questions to me or the CFO. And we'll make sure if we cannot answer a question on the dais at the presentation that we will surely do so by the next city commission workshop or meeting. We'll also be posting questions and responses online for both your review as well as the public's review. We want to maintain transparency in the process. With that, I'll pause and see what questions or areas of interest you would like to see us focus on in coming weeks.
Okay. Colleagues? Commissioner Belcheck.
I do have a question about the dash, and I know that that's something we may be discussing more in depth in the future, but I'm wondering if you could explain why or how the decision was made to make the changes in-house versus considering it like a $1.6 million budget amendment or something that we would need to actually discuss as a commission?
Yeah, I'll very briefly, then we can explore this more. Last year, there was some sensitivity to parking rate increases. And part of the things that were driving parking rate increases was the dash itself. Because both the mayor sits on the Rapid board, both they had concerns about the unaffordability, unsustainability of the dash as well as we. So in order to take some pressure off the cost of parking, we had to make an adjustment of a service in which we do not collect any revenue for. So that's the reason why we made the adjustments. But we can talk about that in more detail.
Thank you. Thanks for the overview and presentation, Ms. Claren. Everybody who put together this packet, as you said, this doesn't just come together, in this last month. So, with lots of changes and lots of things that are happening. If we could do a bit of an overview, I know you talked about the Public Safety Trust Fund money. I think it's clear to me what those dollars can be spent on. We'll go through this process. Obviously, 75% program directly to public safety, what's considered direct service, or, I'm not sure if that's the right language, and then we'll determine what else we do with the amount of money. I think we certainly have a lot of good processes in the city to distribute dollars effectively to communities with community impact and feedback. And so with that in mind, probably that pot of money is not so much my question because it's more clearly defined what that money should be spent on, and we'll go through that process. And I'm sure that will be rigorous. My question is on the road funding dollars. I think for me, that is not really clear what the state intends this money to be spent on. We also obviously have our Vital Streets millage that, sort of people in the city of Grand Rapids have already been investing, thank you, residents of the city of Grand Rapids, in the quality of our streets. And so I'd like some clarity around that. I've had people out in the community already tell me what they think we're spending the money on, and so I'm always a little shocked to be told that. So I'd like some guidelines on what was the intention of that language, and then how do we put that into practice? I'm glad you brought up these severe weather events, or, I don't know if they're called naturally occurring. I'm not sure the right language, but some serious weather events that happen. We were all in Lansing when there was really flash flooding that occurred in the city. We were watching the river quite very closely. We're obviously making all these investments in the river. And so I'd like to understand what is required with that funding and how we might also look at some of these streets that are impacted by some of these severe weather pieces, because I think that's definitely one of the priorities. So I would say that. I would say, I think the last thing that I would just say is just more on sort of what's in front of us, because, like you said, this continuation, there's a lot of uncertainty. Ms. Claren, mentioned, sorry, I didn't see where you were, Molly. I was like, I know you just didn't leave. Certainly lots of changing geopolitical forces at play. And so for me, I think about how do we get out. So this is another topic. Let me just kind of define that. So talked about Public Safety Trust Fund, talked about the Roads Fund. Now I want to shift to sort of the uncertainty that we have in front of us, right? It's much more uncertain. Heard a really interesting story today about tariffs and businesses that are impacted. And anyways, my piece I want to just be really clear is that I'm not interested in continuing any of the, and I know you don't have it in there, but any of the unfunded pieces as it relates to commission support. I have yet to be convinced of what is the value add on this. I think I would actually really rely on, as I was looking at the last printed edition of Easttown's Access newsletter, I really feel like our neighborhood organizations, some that are funded, had been funded, have never been funded, are really valuable tools for us to get messages out, especially right now when there's a lot of uncertainty. And I know some of us have talked about, just sort of the increased sort of news sources, I'm using quotations, of some pieces out in our community. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody, people have their First Amendment rights. But I think there is a lot of miscommunication that is happening right now in our community, and it's no surprise. There's elections going on and, all these sorts of things. So I just would like to say, I'd really like us to explore. I don't want us to get stuck in a binary decision of, are we going to do this commission support or not? I would like us to explore how we better communicate with our residents, with our neighbors. I mean, my husband's in the audience, and he probably watched my ward newsletter. Thanks, hon. But I don't know how many people watch that ward newsletter. And I think that we should really be saying, who are those folks that are most connected? We saw many of them at the neighborhood summit this past weekend, and how can we help them? Many of them had said, how can we help further our messages? And so I'd like us to explore that and not be so focused on the binary or not. And even though I know it's not in the budget, city manager, but I know we probably have differing opinions on what that looks like. So I just think, again, we have consistently been sort of hit on the socials with a lot of people saying that they're news sources and they're not, and that's concerning to me. So. Okay, those are my three priorities I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
And we'll make sure that we talk about those state funds in more detail. Ms. Behrens and team have been very careful to create a menu of options of things we would ask the city commission to consider as targeted areas for uses of the road funding. So we'll be happy to go through them.
Yeah. And, I second Commissioner Eustachy's sentiment there. Like, there's if we have a new source of money, it's very important to have continuity in the city. And so when we have a budget, the vast majority of it is, let's do what we did last year, right? We don't want to stop plowing our streets. We don't want to stop collecting garbage. We don't want to stop the complicated machine that is the city. But when there's an actual new source of money, then that's an opportunity to step back and say, oh, can we do something new? And so I think that's an unusually exciting part of the money we haven't seen yet. It's been announced, and so I think I understand the need to not spend money before we got it. We kind of took a leap of faith on the police officers, but with road funding, I think your decision, city managers, is the correct one to be deliberate about that, imaginative, but also deliberative, and also a little cautious. So, Commissioner Kilgore, you had your hand up.
Okay. Thank you so much to all of our staff. It is a true on Public Service Recognition Week. It's great to see all of our staff working really hard on this. I really appreciate it. Myself and the majority of the commission did seem to want to hear more about our proposed service and provision fees. I am really, as we are responding to the question of what we will want to see even more of, I believe you said it's included, Ms. Claren, but more, or you're open to discussing more about the individual fees. I really will be looking forward to assessing Code C, fees larger than the cost of living adjustments, and we'll really want to hear the rationale and understanding about Code C, larger than cost of living adjustments. As we know, our neighbors and constituents, their pay, their salaries are continuing to really just stall and are not increasing. So that is something I look forward to researching and talking more with our colleagues. In addition, we talked about the great tool that Vital Streets Oversight Commission has been. As a former chair, I'm always really zeroed in on that wonderful tool for our community. As Commissioner Isasi said, it is wonderful that our neighbors support this. And then I also want us to continue to know that this is sunsetting soon. So I'd like to hear more on what are our efforts to continue this tool as we see, even if Lansing says we're going to get more money, it's sort of like, oh my gosh, when, right? So this is a good tool that we have, and I want to hear more about our plan to continue that. So those are my two things I'd like to zero in on and see more. But thank you so much for this. This is a very good presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Kilgore, thank you for your comments. I do want to remind the commission, unlike last year, we wanted to introduce the fee ordinance earlier. And you have that in your packet today, in your full city commission packet, a full disclosure of those fees, and we're happy to talk to them about them in more detail over the coming weeks.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight?
Yes, thank you again, city staff, for putting all this together. Echoing the sentiments of, y'all can hear me, right? No. Okay. Echoing the sentiments of Commissioner Isasi, especially around the administrative support, and really thinking about how that's really impacting our community, if it's really impacting the community, right? And so one thing that I've advocated for from day one is really utilizing our neighborhood associations to really help be an extra arm into community. They tend to have the heartbeat or the pulse of what the community is saying and what a lot of their needs are, and so really being able to help support that work and that communication. I kind of had a question about, I know the police funding that we get from the state is, very specific on what it's supposed to be used for, but I'm also thinking about, and these are questions that I've gotten recently from community about the activation of these new assets that we have downtown and how much of our police force is going to be used to help redirect and direct traffic, and kind of like, where is all of that coming from? And is that money coming from Mobile GR? Then looking at how they had to, we had to cut back on the dash, what the funding is going to look like to support that, and if that's coming like directly out of their budget, or, what we're doing in that, just kind of looking ahead. We don't know what it's going to look like until it starts, right? But really kind of keeping an eye on what and how that's going to impact our community, and then also the impact on funds supporting our public safety department. I got a couple other questions, but I think I can just email those to you.
And I know that, thank you for that. I know that's been a real question of interest in terms of the amount of city resources that will be needed to help to support these new facilities that we have. And fortunately, next week we will be discussing both Safe Community and mobility. And just at a high level, I'm looking forward to Chief Trigg really unpacking kind of the operational plan. I know Ms. Behrens has done that at Public Safety Committee, as well as we had a press conference a week or so ago. But the fiscal impact, I think we're really looking forward to being very prepared for the first couple of shows and then learning and then seeing whether adjustments can be made. And we're happy to talk about the fiscal impacts of that, but also if there are other partnering agencies that we can collaborate with on the public safety side, since it is the city-county Convention Arena Authority, the county may be also able to help us in some of the safety efforts around that venue specifically. And as you said earlier, the funding, the breaded streams of funding, we get contributions from the CAA and the city. I will say on mobile GR, but there's a benefit. It's not because of the events. People are parking more in ramps and on the street, and so there's an added enhancement to our mobility revenue and operation from them. So it makes sense for there to be some participation from the parking fund.
Commissioner Perdue?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I echo all the thanks and gratitude to staff and leadership for preparing for one of our most exciting times of the year, and really appreciate the preliminary overview and look forward to going into further depth in each of these areas over the coming weeks. For now, I'd like to, in addition to some of the topics that my colleagues mentioned they want to go deeper in, I will also add neighborhood organizations and how we might better support our neighborhood associations. This has been a huge need for quite some time. And so I would like us to raise that up in this conversation and see what steps we can begin to make. I think in the Third Ward, Commissioner Kilgore and I discussed being open to using Third Ward Equity Fund to get some of that going. So we can dig a little bit more into those details, but for the Third Ward specifically, but also just we need to figure out how to bolster and strengthen our network of neighborhood associations. I mean, they are really, talk about communication and advocacy and really understanding local needs and being a bridge to City Hall. They are those folks. They really help in that area, and a lot of them don't have a lot of support. So we'd like to raise that. Also, I'm looking forward to go into how we might use road funding, and then want to raise. We talked about this when we looked at the water and sewer rates, and Mayor, you really focused in on this, but how we might use those fees or that are put into that pot of
Late fees.
The late fees that are put into a pot to assist people, and there's usually quite a lot of dollars left over in that, and we wanted to be more proactive about figuring out a good way to utilize those dollars. So I'm sure we can make sure that we have that discussion when we go deeper into that topic, but wanted to flag that. And then finally, did you want to respond to that, Mayor?
If you don't mind me jumping in, it's not the rules, you can keep going, but I just wanted to remind for the public, this is really, I think, something we're both excited about, is there's this, what we've got is a really substantial pile of late fee money that comes out of all around the county. And then that money gets used it's not on a need base that it gets allocated out, but it gets allocated out according to whether your part of the community had a raise in your water rate that was bigger than another part of the communities. And that doesn't necessarily track on an equity lens at all. And so that's a conversation that I think it's exciting to have. And thank you I just wanted to say amen on that. And thanks for we're not done with the conversation. It's really maybe not even part of this discussion. So maybe we went a little off track, but yeah, thank you for that.
No, I think it is though, right? Because what happened last year is we got to the point where, it was really hard to redirect those funds at that point. And so I do think it's good for us to set some of those expectations before we get there again. I think so. Other than that, let me just fumble through my notes here or thumb through. I think I have a follow-up question for Ms. Claren. I am curious about our income tax projections, our income tax growth projection. You mentioned working with the Grand Valley professor. I don't think I caught what you all use to decide those projections between 2027 and 31. So I'm curious about that, and particularly why we project that they might decrease over that time. And then I have one more follow-up after that.
Yeah, I can just briefly talk about they we can jump more into the model if you want to know more of the nuts and bolts, but it's their forecast model over time. So it actually includes some of the stuff I talked about mid-year and today with the slowing down of the economy right now. Different things they take into account. I mentioned what's going on construction-wise in the city. What permits have been pulled in the last few months. Is that an indicator going forward, and what we expect after that? So they are on trend with what we heard from like the Right Place and the Econ Club. The things I go to and I'm like, okay, what's going on in our region? They're pulling some of that same data too, where there is this projected slowdown by 2030. Will it be a recession? Will it be just a slowdown? We'll get going again. So I can definitely do more of a write-up on the GVSU model, though, if you do want to know some of the more finer points of what goes into those numbers.
Well, let me add to that, because I think in the budget book we do a pretty good job of spelling out, and you'll get it on page 20. And it incorporates those variables that Ms. Claren added with income tax, employment, average weekly wages, inflation, the work from home trends, the city planning department's future forecasts of projects, regional construction, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, regional unemployment figures, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, the gross domestic product for the MSA, and weekly wages. It is a really, really comprehensive variable. Yeah. And even in its comprehensiveness, we were very, very aggressive as we've never had a forecast of 4% income tax increase. So I trust their 27 forecast, and I think what they're saying in terms of the future is not any different than what we've heard, as Ms. Claren said.
Yes, and I think every year that I've been up here, we always this is always kind of the same.
No, but this is different. That's what I'm saying. They've aggressively forecasted both 27 and the out years, but they showed the out years being less aggressive than the current year. But in the past, our forecast would have been a 3% for this year.
South of 3 to 2.5, yeah.
Okay, so we're not
so
taking
this is, since I've been CFO over the last 7 years, this has been the most aggressive, especially in those out years. But they are seeing that, tipping off. There's no reason to expect growth right now, or a higher rate of growth right now, in their opinion, compared to 27. Yeah. So yeah. One other thing I'll just take a note of, we mentioned the late fee revenue from the water and sewer utility. That revenue is actually governed by our utility agreements. So I would suggest that conversation happen outside of the budget process, just because there's going to be, if we did want to explore that, it is a whole other thing. So
well, I was going to address that to make sure we level set expectations. I'm happy to have the conversation.
Yep.
But what we did this year, because there was not a lot of flexibility with that fund specifically, because it is a regional program, that's the reason why we wanted to have a couple of areas where it could be more locally focused with our disaster relief fund that we were proposing, as well as for the neighborhood specifically, we are in pending litigation over a major source of revenue that could be allocated with more discretion to some of our neighborhoods down the road. And so I was hoping that would not be the case at this time. And so those were the two things that I was anticipating that would allow us to have more localized focus on helping people in relief.
So
Thank you.
If you can hang on there for just a second. First of all, you had a follow-up question.
Yeah, so very in-depth, sophisticated formula. Is population growth part of the consideration? Okay.
Yep.
I hear that. Okay. And then the last question I had was just related to overtime. Really excited to see that we are going to be doing a study to see what's the best path forward. More so a question out of curiosity, given the actual numbers for both 25 and 26, curious why the proposed amounts, I'm looking at slide 14, the proposed amounts don't more closely reflect what has been the trend of actual spending.
Actual uses. Well, I will say when there's an election year, we've been, you'll see that reflected in the numbers. We're just hit harder, and we can't forecast how many times the candidate's going to come to the city. We also can't predict if there's going to be like a civil unrest incidents, things like that. And I don't know, City Manager, if you want to add to that, but it is that's one of the reasons we're doing the study. It has been hard to, think about, okay, what is the right size staffing for our city, or what is the proper scheduling, and taking that into account, and knowing how big our we're doing budget amendments almost every year now. So, talking with city managers, like we need to understand this better. So we're getting our hands around it.
So let me add to Ms. Clarence's comments. So yes, there's a lot of variability around labor costs, weather, inclement weather, both extreme heat, extreme cold, that adds a lot to first responders. We've seen that this past winter. Major events, whether they're venues or they're election seasons, those contribute to variability. What we've tried to do, based on direction that we've gotten from this commission in the past, is to charge the departments to try to manage the costs. And that is what they have done. While the overtime budget has exceeded in some areas, as their ability to reduce costs in other areas could offset those overtime costs. The fire department did a really good job of that a couple of years ago when we added some firefighters to the roster, and we were able to reduce those costs significantly. They're starting to creep again, and we need to better understand why. But before we resign and say we need a double overtime, we want to have a very thorough management evaluation of what's happening before just assuming that's business as usual. Again, as I said, with public safety on the police side, there may be other ways to mitigate that cost with other agencies, or to get additional revenue outside the city before we just assume the general fund has to incur that on an ongoing basis. So I'm hopeful the study will be more informative of what we should do and what we can expect moving forward.
Thank you, and I'm still in agreement with that approach, and thanks for breaking down kind of how that shows up in this proposal. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Kilgore.
Thank you, Mayor. In line with things that we'd like to zero in more on, I'm so pleased to hear from staff. We talked about it earlier in fiscal, how we are supporting our climate action adaptation plan through grants from EAGLE. I really like seeing the innovation in funding some of our goals and priorities. In line with that, Commissioner Perdue and I have had the idea and talked throughout community about philanthropy and community partners bolstering the Third Ward Equity Fund. This $1 million has been transformative. It's awesome. We are thankful to our colleagues for continuing to support the Third Ward Equity Fund, but we want to think larger. As we know, things are more expensive. It feels like it's $1 million just to put a shovel in the ground. So how can we get community partners? So we talked about that. City Manager, you noted talking to community partners about helping fund the storage program. I would love to, as we connect and partner and lock arms with our community partners, could some of that conversation also be about supporting the Third Ward Equity Fund?
Well, I'm going to use this word that Ms. Barron has used. There's braided ways in which that happens. Even with, the Third Ward Equity Fund and the use of the Youth Employment Program, those are community leverage programming. That can happen. The RX Kids is another example of community leverage funding. And so while it is not specifically called out, there are community partners that are coming alongside in various ways to help us leverage not the fund, but the outcome of other programs in which we're funding. So perhaps we can give more examples of that and call that out. But it certainly doesn't help to ask, but we can see what we can call out specifically.
Thank you very much.
Great. Any follow-ups, colleagues? Commissioner Beljack.
Thank you. I appreciate the second chance here at the round table. So even though I asked my question earlier, and I'm glad we're going to address it, I would like to also just highlight that I've been and continue to pay attention to how we're implementing our urban and forestry initiative. So I see that we have $3 million allocated to that. So I would be interested in hearing more from the Parks Department as we move forward in maintenance of our trees, particularly our neighborhood trees that maybe aren't priority 1 trees, but do need maintenance. I've had a lot of complaints from my own neighborhood, but also different people in the Upper West Side, I would say. And I think that the support to strengthen the engagement initiatives for the Parks Department is also important because I think that there's a lot going on with the new programs that are going on, being developed with Oxford Trails and other things. And I presume that some of this has to do with the new memorial services and things like that are going to be offered. So I'll be looking at that section of the budget for the parks as well.
Thank you. Anyone else, colleagues? Otherwise, if we're wrapping up our discussion, thank you so much, Ms. McLaren. Thank you, City Manager, and thanks to all the staff that put an insane amount of work in to get this to this point. Just to reiterate for the public, this is us saying, hey, this is the beginning of the process. So there are a number of points. We're going to have a workshop session on this. There are going to be a number of points where the community can give us public input. I mean, people can give us public input tonight if they want. So this is the beginning of the engagement on this process. But I really appreciate the professionalism, the clarity, the intent on honest forecasting, the good financial planners always spend their time, making sure there are backstops and making sure that things don't go off the rail. And back when I was on City Commission 15 years ago, back then it was a new radical idea to do 5-year budgeting. But the idea of taking a constant rolling 5-year look is just a very, very healthy way to look at budgeting because, we don't want to sort of have reactive, oh, wow, there's a surprise. Oh, wow, we didn't see that coming. And predicting the economy in 5 years is a little bit like trying to predict the weather in 3 weeks. Like, I can say, well, it's probably not going to be snowing in 3 weeks, but I could be wrong. So, macro trends, I have less and less confidence of them as we're going further and further in the future. I mean, I wouldn't have predicted AI. I didn't predict COVID. There's lots of things that are going to happen in the future that nobody in this room would have predicted. And so it's a combination of prudence and planning.
I think that's well said, Mayor. You're adopting a 1-year operating budget, and certainly we are approving the 5-year capital plan, but we do our best to forecast, but there's a lot of uncertainty. I want to conclude by a couple of things. One, let me acknowledge and thank my chief of staff, Lou Canfield, who's been working very closely with our CFO. He's actually our chief strategy officer for the city. So the budget and strategy go hand in hand. And I typically call him Lou the Glue, but this session I called him Lou the Super Glue. He's done a good job keeping all this together. So I want to thank him. And to that end, him and Asante and Doug and Kate have also been very, very helpful in putting this budget together, along with our managing directors, Ms. Bo Hatch and Wayne as well. So thank both of them. We do have books that we'd like to present, Mayor, at this time. Everybody, make sure you get your budget books and you can add to them as presentations become available. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I was actually having a sidebar there. Are we ready to move on to our resolutions, or did you say this? Okay, great. So bringing us back to our agenda then, having had the discussion, we have 2 resolutions which are coupled and relate to the presentation we just had. First is a resolution schedule a public hearing for the budget for May 12. Can I have a motion?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Second is resolution for public hearing on May 12 on service provision fees. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to one walk-on agenda item, and that is to move into closed session and retire from here to room 601 for the purpose of discussion pending litigation. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Support.
Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgore,
Yes.
Commissioner Belcheck,
Yes.
Commissioner Sassi, Commissioner Perdue,
Yes.
Mayor LaGrand.
Yes.
Mayor, do we project that we'll have enough time where we won't run into public safety at 12:30? Yes. Okay.
Great. Thank you. We're adjourned.
We'll have a